It is late. You're lying in bed, bathed in the pale fluorescent glow of your smartphone. You are doing what billions of us do every single night, scrolling. You swipe through a video with 5 million views. You read a comment section blazing with 60,000 angry replies. You watch trends rise and fall in the span of hours, driven by what appears to be the collective pulse-pounding heartbeat of humanity. You feel connected to a massive global conversation. It feels vibrant, chaotic, and intensely alive. But what if it is all a beautifully orchestrated lie? What if you were to suddenly realize that the vast, bustling digital metropolis you navigate every single day is completely abandoned? What if I told you that out of those millions of views, those thousands of comments, and that endless stream of hyperviral drama, you are the only actual human being in the room? Welcome to the dead internet theory. Born in the obscure paranoid corners of image boards and early web forums, this was once dismissed as a fringe conspiracy, a dystopian science fiction trope whispered among hyper-cynical netizens. The theory posits a profoundly unsettling concept: that the organic, human-driven internet we once knew actually died around the year 2019 or 2020. According to this theory, the web has been quietly hollowed out, replaced by a sophisticated artificial simulation. The content you consume, the fiery political debates you engage in, and the viral memes you share to your friends are no longer the product of human creativity. They are generated, distributed, and primarily consumed by an endless army of automated bots. The internet is no longer a tool for human connection. It is a haunted house of code, and we are merely the ghosts wandering through its empty halls. Tonight, we're going to look at the cold, hard data, the terrifying mechanics of the modern web, and the digital autopsy of the human internet. By the end of this video, you will never look at a screen the same way again. To understand the death of the internet, we must first look at the mathematical reality of its autopsy. Every year, cybersecurity firms like Imperva release comprehensive reports analyzing global web traffic. And every year, the trajectory points toward a terrifying inevitability. As of recent data, roughly half of all internet traffic is entirely non-human. Think about the sheer scale of that metric. Every second, petabytes of data traverse the globe, and 50% of it is generated by automated scripts, scrapers, crawlers, and malicious botnets. But this is not merely a story of benign search engine crawlers indexing Google results. Over 30% of this total traffic is classified specifically as bad bots, sophisticated adversarial programs designed to scrape proprietary data, execute distributed denial-of-service attacks, and infiltrate digital infrastructure. For a long time, bots were easy to spot. They were clumsy, primitive things. They relied on rigid, pre-programmed rules. If you encountered a bot in 2015, it usually had a chaotic alphanumeric username, an egg for a profile picture, and it spammed broken English links promising you a free iPhone or a miracle cryptocurrency. They were an annoyance, like gnats buzzing around a porch light. You knew they were machines. But the advent of large language models, or LLMs, fundamentally altered the architecture of the digital world. The Turing test, the famous philosophical benchmark designed to determine if a machine can exhibit intelligent behavior indistinguishable from a human, has not just been passed, it has been completely obliterated. Bots have evolved from dumb, repetitive spam accounts into highly sophisticated, articulate, digital entities. Through the power of generative AI, these neural networks ingest billions of parameters of human text, learning the precise cadence, emotional nuance, and grammatical idiosyncrasies of human speech. Today's bots do not just spam links. They write perfectly formatted, emotionally compelling essays on obscure historical events. They engage in fiercely nuanced political debates on Twitter, perfectly mimicking the righteous indignation of a hyper-partisan voter. They create and propagate viral memes that perfectly capture the specific, ironic zeitgeist of a Tuesday afternoon. They have learned to pause, to use slang, to purposely make slight typographical errors to appear more authentic. The barrier between biological intelligence and synthetic mimicry has evaporated. When you are arguing with someone in a YouTube comment section, meticulously typing out your well-researched rebuttal, there is a statistically massive probability that you are furiously attempting to persuade a string of Python code running on a server rack in Nevada. But an army of sophisticated articulate bots requires immense computational power and financial capital to operate. Machines do not build themselves, and they do not deploy themselves. To understand why the internet was assassinated and replaced with this synthetic simulation, we must follow the money and the power. We must look to the puppet masters. The zombification of the web is driven by two overwhelmingly powerful, distinct forces. The first force is the corporate machine. The modern digital economy is entirely built upon a singular, foundational metric: engagement. The entire advertising ecosystem, a multi-trillion-dollar global industry, relies on the assumption that real human eyeballs are looking at screens. But human attention is finite. There are only so many hours in a day, and only so many real people to click on ads. To sustain infinite corporate growth, tech giants and digital marketing conglomerates require an infinite supply of engagement. Enter the bots. We exist in a parasitic financial loop where corporations deploy bots to watch their own advertisements, click their own links, and simulate massive consumer interest. This is programmatic ad fraud on an industrial planetary scale. Entire networks of synthetic users are spawned to inflate metrics, allowing platforms to charge higher premiums to advertisers, who in turn use bots to inflate their own success metrics. It is a multi-billion-dollar house of cards, an economy of shadows where the product, the consumer, and the marketplace are all fundamentally fake. The second force is far more sinister: the weaponized narrative. While corporations use bots to steal money, governments and state-sponsored intelligence agencies use them to steal reality. Across the globe, highly organized troll factories deploy massive AI-driven botnets to conduct psychological warfare on civilian populations. This is the industrial manufacture of consent. Without a single real citizen participating, a state actor can deploy thousands of artificial personas to fabricate grassroots political movements, a tactic known as astroturfing. These digital sleeper cells infiltrate local Facebook groups, hijack Twitter hashtags, and manipulate algorithm recommendations to force specific polarizing narratives into the mainstream consciousness. They use AI to generate outrage, to amplify racial and economic tensions, and to manipulate the democratic process in the US and Europe. They create the illusion of massive public consensus or overwhelming public division, tricking real humans into adopting extreme ideologies based entirely on the artificial consensus of machines. You think you are observing the pulse of the nation, but you are actually experiencing a meticulously engineered psychological operation. We have established that bots generate the majority of traffic, and that powerful entities use them to manipulate commerce and culture. But this brings us to the most terrifying existential twist of the dead internet theory, a phenomenon that computer scientists refer to as model collapse, or the algorithmic loop. To understand this, you must understand how artificial intelligence learns. Large language models and generative image bots require unimaginably vast amounts of training data. Historically, this meant scraping the entire internet, reading every blog post, every Wikipedia article, every human-drawn piece of art, and every digitized book ever written by biological humans. But the well of human data has run dry. The AI companies have essentially scraped all of human history because the internet is now flooded with synthetic AI-generated content. The massive data scrapers that crawl the web for new training material are no longer scraping human thought. They are scraping the output of other AI models. We have entered a closed loop. The machines are feeding on themselves. It is synthetic data eating synthetic data, a digital Ouroboros consuming its own tail. When an AI trains on AI-generated data, the underlying model begins to break down. It loses the beautiful, chaotic, organic nuance of human creativity. The output becomes an echo chamber of mirrors, producing a homogenized, uncanny valley distortion of reality. We see this manifesting right now in the surreal, bizarre AI-generated images that completely dominate older platforms like Facebook, or the terrifying, mathematically optimized, nonsensical sensory videos pumped into YouTube Kids. Humans have been quietly, unceremoniously locked out of the equation. We are no longer the drivers of online culture. We are merely the passive biological exhaust of a system operating at speeds and scales we cannot comprehend. We log on, hoping to find a spark of human connection, only to wander into a vast alien landscape where machines are endlessly creating artificial culture specifically designed to be consumed by other machines. The internet is no longer a human network with some bots on it. It is a bot network that occasionally tolerates the presence of a few confused humans. If the dead internet theory is true, and the terrifying velocity of our current technological advancement suggests that it is rapidly becoming our absolute reality, we are forced to confront a deeply unsettling philosophical crisis. What happens to human culture when our primary mechanism for recording and sharing it is fundamentally compromised? How do we establish truth, form genuine communities, or protect our democratic institutions when the very fabric of our communication is a manufactured hallucination? We are stepping into a digital dark forest, a place where you can no longer trust your eyes, your ears, or the emotional resonance of the words you read on a screen. Centuries ago, the philosopher René Descartes famously declared, "I think, therefore I am," proving his own existence through the sheer act of conscious doubt. But in an era where synthetic intelligence can think, reason, debate, and doubt with mathematical perfection, how do you prove who you are? How do you prove that the empathy you feel, the anger you experience, and the connections you build online are not simply the programmed responses of a biological organism reacting to a meticulously coded stimuli? The grid is lonely, not because it is empty, but because it is crowded with phantoms. As you finish this video and scroll down to leave a comment, take a moment to look closely at the names, the avatars, and the arguments waiting for you in the section below. Ask yourself, how many of them are real? How many of them are just lines of code waiting to engage you? And perhaps the most terrifying question of all, when you finally type your response into the void, who exactly do you think is reading it?